We talk about man-made climate change, because that's obviously what we're concerned with, because that's what we can alter.
Absolutely.
To you, there's no doubt at all.
No, that's absolutely right.
Are there any credible scientists who doubt it?
Well, I think the evidence is absolutely overwhelming. And of course, the IPCC process itself is the most enormous exercise to actually try and get the best possible consensus. So for this particular report that came out today, more than 300 scientists, lead authors, were involved in the production of the report. They looked at 12,000 papers. Their comments were subject to many thousands of reviews. So this is really looking at all the evidence there is. But if you just step back and say, you know, what is it that humans are doing?
Yeah.
What we're doing is that we are burning enormous amounts of fossil fuel. So we're releasing into the atmosphere each year more than 10 gigatons of carbon into our atmosphere. Now, 10 gigatons, what does that mean? Well, 1 gigaton is 1 billion tons. That's 1,000 million tons of carbon. So imagine putting 10,000 million tons of carbon into the atmosphere each year. That is what's underlying the climate change. And what that carbon, it's in the form of carbon dioxide, and there are other greenhouse gases as well. What it does is it traps in the atmosphere some of the heat that's radiated from the surface of the planet, and it results in warming.
And I get that. I don't think even skeptics would argue with that heat is trapped. No one doubts that.
No.
But I think what the skeptics' argument is not actually, they're not usually as black and white as there is no man-made climate change. My impression of the skeptics, what they say is there is some, but the amount is exaggerated. The degree to which man is changing the climate is exaggerated. Are you saying that, do you believe it to be the case that in terms of man-made climate change over the last 100 years, that most of that is down to stuff that man has done?
Yes, absolutely, and that's what the IPCC, and in fact was their first report on the physical basis of climate change. And the measured change in temperature since 1900 to about now, averaged over the surface of the planet, is about 0.85 degrees centigrade. Now, you might say, well, that's not very much, is it? But the point is it's not evenly distributed, and what we're seeing as a result is climate disruption. And most of the warming is actually going into the seas and the oceans, which are an enormous heat sink. So if you measure temperature in all sorts of different places, you see temperature rising. So it's not simply that we've measured the temperature in the lower atmosphere and it's 0.85 degrees centigrade. If you measure it in the water, the seas, it's going up. And if you look at other things, if you look at glaciers, if you look at snowfall, if you look at the Arctic ice, each of them is reducing.